You stand here today, carrying a sensitivity that feels like both a blessing and a curse. And you wonder why your heart reacts before your mind even catches up. You notice the subtle shifts in other people's faces, the tone beneath their words, the storm before it breaks. But I tell you this, your sensitivity, as precious as it might appear to others, is not born out of pure grace. It is a survival reflex of a soul that once learned to be vigilant in a world that felt unsafe. It is not a divine ornament handed to you without reason. It is a mirror of the battles your younger self had to fight in silence. When I speak of childhood wounds, I do not speak of them as distant memories, but as living patterns, coiled like serpents in the depths of the unconscious, shaping the way we breathe, the way we love, and the way we fear. Your sensitivity is an ancient sentinel. It was the part of you that stayed awake when you should have been allowed to rest, the part that scanned the room for danger when you should have been allowed to dream. It is not weakness, and it is not flaw. It is a language written by your nervous system, a script carved into your psyche when the world demanded you be more aware than a child should ever have to be. I have seen in dreams, my own and those of countless souls, the image of the child standing in the middle of a dark forest, listening for the breaking of a branch or the rustle of a predator. This child is you. This child is the archetype of the wounded watcher, an ancient figure that lives in all who grew up without feeling safe. And your sensitivity is the gift of that archetype, but a gift forged through fire, through fear, through the necessity of survival. It is not an inherited crown, but an armor born out of necessity. And as long as you do not recognize this, you will continue to confuse vigilance for intuition, fear for law, and protection for connection. You see, sensitivity and intuition are not always the same. Sensitivity rooted in fear is like an animal's hypervigilance. It scans, it anticipates, it reacts to shadows, often long before they become real threats. Intuition, however, arises from the deep, still waters of the unconscious. It is not anxious, it does not tremble, it knows. And one of the great tasks of your life will be to disentangle your fear-born sensitivity from the quiet knowing of your deeper self. To do this, you must walk back into the landscapes of your own history. Not as the frightened child who once stood there, but as the adult who can now hold that child in their arms and say, you do not have to watch over the forest anymore. I am here. The unconscious is a labyrinth, and at its center lies not the monster you fear, but the forgotten child who longs to be seen. Each dream you have ever dismissed as meaningless is a letter from that child. Have you noticed how your dreams speak in symbols, broken windows, houses with endless rooms, wolves at the door? These are not random images. They are psychic truths. The broken window is the breach in your safety. The house is the structure of your soul, and the wolf is the fear you felt, stalking the edges of your innocence. You, my friend, are not fragile because you are sensitive. You are powerful because you have survived what would have crushed others. But power, when unrecognized, becomes a wound that bleeds into every relationship you touch. How many times have you found yourself absorbing the emotions of those around you, as if you were a sponge made to soak up pain that is not yours? How often do you find yourself exhausted, not because you did too much, but because you felt too much. This is not empathy alone. It is a reflex. It is a nervous system you forged in childhood. A system that taught you that in order to be safe, you must feel everything, anticipate everything, manage everything, even the storms that were never yours to calm. Let us go deeper. In every person, there are layers of shadow and light. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the part of you that was pushed away, unloved, or misunderstood. Your sensitivity is both a strength and a shadow. When you were young, you may have believed that if you could just sense your parents' moods quickly enough, you could avoid their anger, their coldness, their chaos. This was the strategy of your shadow self, the part of you that learned to stay small, quiet, and hyper-aware to survive. But now, as an adult, this same strategy may make you feel trapped, always scanning, always on edge, never fully able to relax into your own being. There is a paradox here. What saved you as a child may imprison you as an adult. Your sensitivity was the sword you carried into battle, but you are no longer at war. You do not need to live every moment braced for impact. Yet, to lay down that sword, you must first acknowledge how heavy it has become, how deeply it has cut into your own skin. This is the work of individuation, the process of integrating every lost piece of yourself, even the ones you thought were weaknesses, into a whole and sovereign being. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the first time you felt truly unsafe, not just physically, but emotionally. Perhaps it was the silence of a parent who should have spoken words of love but did not. Perhaps it was the unpredictable storm of anger from someone you depended on. Or perhaps it was the absence of someone you desperately needed, leaving you to feel like the world itself was unreliable. These are not just memories. They are imprints carved into your nervous system like runes. And your sensitivity is the echo of those runes, a song that plays in the background of your life, whether you notice it or not. In the language of archetypes, you are both the child and the healer. The child within you still seeks safety, while the healer in you longs to transform that wound into wisdom. This is why you are drawn to the pain of others, because somewhere deep inside, if you believe that if you can heal them, you can finally heal yourself. But this is a trap, a projection of your own longing. The truth is that the healing must begin within you, not outside of you. You cannot save others from storms that still rage within your own soul. Dreams often reveal this truth in strange ways. I once heard a dream from a woman who described herself as too sensitive. In her dream, she stood on the shore of a dark sea, watching the waves crash violently. She felt responsible for calming the sea, as if her own heart could dictate the storm's rage. But no matter how hard she tried, the waves grew higher, threatening to swallow her. When I asked her what the sea represented, she wept. It's everyone's emotions. She said, I feel like I have to keep them calm, or something terrible will happen. This is the burden of sensitivity, believing that you are responsible for the tides of the world, when, in truth, you are only responsible for your task. Then is not to numb your sensitivity, but to understand its origin and redirect its power. Like a raw current of electricity, your sensitivity can burn you or light the world, depending on how you channel it. You are not here to be the eternal guardian of other storms. You are here to reclaim the parts of yourself that have been locked away in fear. The unconscious speaks in images, and one of the most powerful images of transformation is that of fire. Fire destroys, but it also purifies. Your sensitivity must pass through the fire of awareness. It must be burned clean of fear, so that what remains is pure intuition. Unshackled by past wounds, this is not easy work. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of your own history, to look at the moments that shaped you and say, I see you, I honor you, but I will not be defined by you forever. This is the beginning of a long journey, the journey of turning survival into selfhood. You must stop seeing your sensitivity as something you owe to the world and start seeing it as something you can refine for yourself. This means setting boundaries that your younger self never knew were possible. It means saying no to the roles you were forced into: the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the silent observer, and saying yes to the fullness of your own being. To truly understand your sensitivity, you must see it not as a flaw, but as a message from your unconscious. It is your body's way of saying, something inside me learned long ago to survive by feeling everything. And now, as an adult, the challenge is not to get rid of this sensitivity, but to guide it, to integrate it into your life without letting it consume you. When I speak of integration, I am speaking of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming who you truly are, beyond the masks and roles you had to wear to survive. There is a voice within you that is not the voice of fear, but it is faint, buried under layers of old reflexes. This deeper voice is like a whisper in the woods, the voice of the self, the totality of who you are, conscious and unconscious, shadow and light, past and future. To hear this voice, you must first silence the alarms that your sensitivity sets off at every moment. You must learn to tell the difference between danger that is real and danger that is merely the echo of your childhood. Without this distinction, you will spend your life jumping at shadows, feeling as though every glance or every silence is a threat. Consider this: when you walk into a room, how often do you immediately sense the tension, the unspoken emotions of those around you? You may even predict conflict before it arises, because your body feels a change in the air, like a barometer reading a storm. This ability might seem supernatural, but it is the finely tuned skill of someone who, as a child, had to read the emotional weather to stay safe. Perhaps you had to know when your father was in a bad mood, or when your mother was about to withdraw into silence. These skills are not gifts from nowhere, they are survival mechanisms. But now, you are no longer that child, and yet your body behaves as if you are. This is why you feel exhausted after being around people for too long. Your nervous system is still acting like it must guard the gates, scanning every face for a flicker of danger. You carry the reflex of hyper-awareness, like a warrior who has forgotten that the war ended years ago. This is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to heal. To heal does not mean to erase the past. It means to bring it into the light, to see it clearly, and to choose differently in the present. The shadow in Jungian terms, is not evil. It is simply the unseen, the unintegrated. Your sensitivity has a shadow side. It can make you feel victimized, misunderstood, overwhelmed. But if you bring it into awareness, it can become a source of great power. The very sensitivity that once kept you alive can become a channel for creativity, empathy, and profound understanding of the human soul. Yet, this will not happen unless you are willing to do the hard work of self-confrontation. You must go down into your own darkness, not to drown in it, but to retrieve the gold that lies there. I often speak of the wounded healer archetype. This is the person who heals others because they themselves have been wounded. You might feel drawn to this role, always helping, always rescuing, always sensing the pain of others. But here is the danger. The wounded healer who does not heal themselves becomes a prisoner of their own patterns. They confuse compassion with self-sacrifice, empathy with the loss of boundaries. They give until they are empty, and then wonder why the world feels so heavy. If this is you, I urge you to pause. Your sensitivity is not meant to be a leash that ties you to the suffering of others. It is meant to help you understand yourself first, and only then to serve others from a place of wholeness. Let us speak of dreams again. Dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, the language of the soul. If you pay attention to your dreams, you will notice that they often reflect your sensitivity in symbolic form. Perhaps you dream of being chased, of houses without doors, of waves crashing toward you. These dreams are not meaningless. They are the story of your nervous system. The chase represents the feeling of always being pursued by danger, even when none is present. The house without doors is your psyche, unable to find a safe entry or exit. The waves are the emotions of others that you feel you must control but cannot. In one dream I was told about a man described standing in a room full of mirrors. Each mirror showed him not as he was, but as others saw him, distorted, broken, fragmented. He said he woke feeling as though he did not know who he really was, only who others expected him to be. This, too, is the burden of sensitivity, the constant reflection of others' moods, desire, and judgments, until you lose sight of your own reflection. The task of individuation is to shatter these false mirrors and find the mirror that reflects your true self. The self is not fragile. It is the eternal core of your being, untouched by the storms of childhood, untouched by the expectations of the world. But to reach it, you must pass through the shadow. You must acknowledge the pain of your younger self, not to dwell in it, but to free it. Imagine that younger self standing in front of you now, wide-eyed, trembling, unsure. What would you say? Perhaps you would say, "You are safe now. You do not need to carry this alone. I am here for you." To speak these words is to begin the work of healing, and healing is not linear. There will be days when your sensitivity feels like a gift, and days when it feels like a curse. There will be times when you feel deeply connected to your inner strength, and times when the old reflexes return, pulling you back into fear. This is normal. The journey of individuation is not a straight path, it is a spiral. You will revisit the same lessons over and over. each time at a deeper level until the wound no longer defines you. I want you to understand something profound. The world needs your sensitivity, but not in the form of self-erasure. We do not need you to carry everyone's pain. We need you to transform your sensitivity into wisdom, into clarity, into the kind of presence that does not get lost in the noise of others. When you learn to ground yourself, to root your sensitivity in the strength of yourself, you become like a tree that can bend with the wind but does not break. This is true power. There is a symbol I often use when speaking of this transformation, the alchemical vessel. In ancient alchemy, transformation required a vessel strong enough to withstand fire. Your sensitivity is like this vessel. It must be strengthened so that it does not shatter under pressure. How do you strengthen it? By facing your past, by setting boundaries, by listening to your dreams, by honoring your needs as much as you honor the needs of others. Each act of self-respect adds to the strength of your vessel. Each moment of clarity burns away the dross of fear. You may ask, but how do I stop feeling so much? I will tell you, the goal is not to stop feeling, but to feel in a new way, to feel without drowning, to sense without losing yourself. This requires you to develop what I call the inner observer, the part of you that can watch your emotions and thoughts without being consumed by them. This observer is like a lantern in the dark, illuminating what is real and what is merely an echo of old pain. When you cultivate this observer, you begin to see that not every emotion you feel belongs to you. You can feel the sadness in a room without claiming it as your own. You can notice the anger in someone's voice without making it your responsibility to fix it. The deeper truth is this: your sensitivity is trying to lead you back to yourself. It is the messenger, not the enemy. It whispers, pay attention, but not to every external noise. It wants you to pay attention to your inner world, the dreams, the symbols, the shadows that hold the key to your freedom. If you ignore this inner call, your sensitivity will feel like chaos. But if you answer it, your sensitivity becomes a compass, pointing you toward your authentic self. When you begin to see your sensitivity as a compass rather than a curse, the world shifts in subtle but powerful ways. You no longer walk into a room overwhelmed by what others feel, because you have learned to ask, is this mine? Or is this the echo of someone else's storm? This one question, asked with awareness, can save you from drowning in emotional tides that were never meant for you. It is the difference between being a sponge and being a mirror that reflects but does not absorb, that witnesses without losing itself in the reflection. But this shift requires courage, for it demands that you confront the part of you that believes safety only comes from constant vigilance. This is the voice of the child who learned that the world was unpredictable, that love could vanish without warning, that chaos could erupt at any moment. That child is still inside you, whispering. If you stop paying attention, you will get hurt again. To comfort this child, you must first recognize them. You must speak to them gently, not with anger or dismissal, but with compassion. You were right to be afraid. You were right to be alert. But you are not alone anymore. I am here now. There is a deep truth I have discovered in the labyrinth of the human psyche. What you resist in yourself grows stronger. If you resist your sensitivity. If you label it as a weakness or a burden, it will tighten its grip on you, manifesting as anxiety, exhaustion, even physical pain. But when you embrace it, when you honor its origin and invite it into the light, it begins to transform, it softens, it becomes less a frantic survival reflex and more an intuitive guide. This transformation is not magic, it is alchemy. And like all true alchemy, it requires fire, the fire of awareness, the fire of facing your own darkness without flinching. I have often said that the unconscious is not merely a storage of forgotten memories, it is a living presence. It is like a great underground river that shapes the surface of our lives without us even knowing it. Your sensitivity is a sign that this river runs close to the surface. You feel the currents of the unseen, the unspoken, the unacknowledged. And yet, until you learn to navigate these waters, you risk being swept away by them. The goal is not to dam the river, but to learn its language, to ride its currents with grace. Have you ever noticed how your body reacts before your mind? A tightening in your chest, a quickening of your breath, a knot in your stomach. These are not random sensations. They are messages from the unconscious, warning signals that once kept you alive. But ask yourself, are these signals responding to the present moment, or are they echoes of an old battlefield? More often than not, they are echoes. Your body is still fighting wars that ended long ago, and so the healing begins when you teach your body that it is safe now. This can be done through breath, through grounding, through speaking softly to the younger self within you. We are safe now. We are not in danger. Dreams often reveal how deeply these old reflexes run. I recall a dream shared by a man who had always described himself as too sensitive. In his dream, he was standing on a bridge made of glass, terrified that it would shatter with every step. Beneath him roared a dark river. When I asked him what the river represented, he said, all the emotions I can't control. I feel like I fall into them if I'm not careful. This is the fear of many sensitive souls, that if they stop guarding, they will drown in the emotions of others or in their own. But what I told him was this: the bridge is not meant to stay fragile. You must build a foundation within yourself so strong that no river can sweep you away. This is the essence of individuation. To individuate is to build this inner foundation, to integrate every part of yourself, the child, the shadow, the healer, the warrior, into a whole that cannot be easily shaken. You are not meant to stay forever at the mercy of your old patterns. You are meant to evolve, to rise above them, to see them for what they are, survival strategies that serve their purpose, but are no longer needed in the same way. Let us speak of archetypes again, for they are the language of the soul. The sensitive child is one archetype, but it is not your only one. You are also the hero, the seeker, the magician. The hero in you longs to take the pain of your past and turn it into strength. The seeker longs to understand the mysteries of the heart and the mind. And the magician, the magician is the one who knows how to transmute wounds into wisdom, who can take the raw material of suffering and shape it into light, When you recognize these archetypes within yourself, as you begin to see that your sensitivity is not your whole story, it is just one chapter. Yet, I will not lie to you. This journey is not without its trials. To face your shadow is to confront the parts of yourself that you have disowned, the memories that still ache, so the emotions you have buried. But I promise you this, there is no darkness so deep that it does not contain the seed of light. Every wound you carry is also a doorway. If you have the courage to step through, you will find not emptiness, but the truth of who you are. Think of the phoenix, that mythical bird that burns in its own fire and rises anew from the ashes. Your sensitivity must go through the same process. It must burn away the fear, the self-blame, the old stories of unworthiness, until what remains is pure presence, an awareness that feels deeply but is no longer chained to the past. This is what I want for you, not to lose your sensitivity, but to reclaim it as something holy, something that serves you rather than imprisons you. And so I ask you, when was the last time you sat with your own pain without trying to fix it or run from it? When was the last time you held your own heart the way you have held others? This is where the true healing begins. Not in trying to change who you are, but in loving who you are, even the parts that feel too much, especially the parts that feel too much. For they are the parts that know life most intimately. There is a moment, a turning point, when you realize that the very sensitivity that once made you feel small is also the doorway to your greatness. It is through feeling deeply that you can connect to the archetypal forces of the psyche, to the collective unconscious, to the myths and symbols that have guided humanity for centuries. You are not just a single individual carrying a private wound. You are part of a vast story, an ancient narrative in which the sensitive soul is often the one chosen to see what others cannot. But you must choose how to use this vision. Will you let it drown you, or will you let it guide you to the truth? There comes a moment when the sensitive soul must decide to no longer be defined by the reflexes of survival. This moment often arrives like a whisper, a quiet realization that you cannot keep living as though the world is still as dangerous as it once was. This realization is the first sign of awakening. It is as if the unconscious begins to send you dreams of open fields, of doors you never noticed before, of light streaming through cracks in walls that once seemed impenetrable. These are not just dreams, they are invitations to step out of the cage you built when you were too young to know that freedom was even possible. I will tell you something that may surprise you. Sensitivity, when transformed, becomes one of the greatest sources of wisdom. But this wisdom does not come from endlessly feeling the storms of others. It comes from diving into the depths of your own soul, learning the language of your shadows, and returning to the surface with the treasures you find. Think of the myth of Inanna, the Sumerian goddess who descended into the underworld, stripped of all her power, only to rise again, transformed and reborn. This is your task, to descend into your own underworld, to confront the pain of your past, and to rise with a new understanding of who you truly are. You are not meant to stay in the role of the watcher, always guarding, always anticipating. That was the child's role, and it served you well. But now you are called to something greater. You are called to become the witness, the one who sees without fear, who feels without being consumed. The witness does not scan for danger. The witness observes with clarity and presence, trusting that whatever arises can be faced, not avoided. This shift from watcher to witness is the key to transforming your sensitivity. But how do you make this shift? It begins with small acts of trust, trusting that you do not need to anticipate every mood in a room, trusting that silence is not always a threat, trusting that you can sit with your own discomfort without being destroyed by it. Trust is not built overnight. It is built one breath at a time, one choice at a time. Each time you notice yourself bracing for danger that is not there, and you gently remind yourself, I'm safe. You are teaching your nervous system a new language. Over time, this language becomes stronger than the old reflexes. You begin to live not as a frightened child, but as a conscious adult who knows their own strength. Your dreams will often reflect this shift. You may begin to dream of doors opening, of houses with warmth, inviting rooms, of finding lost objects that were precious to you. These are signs that your psyche is beginning to heal. You are reclaiming the parts of yourself that were lost to fear. You are becoming whole. And wholeness is not about perfection. It is about integration. It is about being able to say, this is who I am, sensitive. Yes, but also strong, wise, and capable of standing in my own power. You may find, as you heal, that your relationships change. The roles you once played, the caretaker, the fixer, the one who absorbs everyone's pain, will no longer fit you. This can be uncomfortable. People who relied on you to carry their storms may resist your transformation. They may call you distant, selfish, or cold, but do not be deceived. Setting boundaries is not a sign of coldness. It is a sign of love for yourself, and love for the kind of relationships that are built on mutual respect rather than silent suffering. You are not here to be everyone's savior. You are here to live fully, to express the truth of your own being. When you stop carrying what is not yours, something remarkable happens. Your energy returns, your mind clears, your intuition sharpens, not the hypervigilance of fear, but the quiet knowing of the soul. You begin to notice that life has a rhythm, a pulse, a deeper order that you could not see before because you were too busy trying to control everything. This rhythm is not something you create. It is something you align with. It is the flow of life itself. The same flow that guides the seasons, the stars, and the tides. When you trust this flow, you no longer feel the need to brace against every change. You can let life move through you, knowing that you are part of something far greater than your fears. There is an image that often comes to me when I speak of this, the image of a river. When you were a child, your sensitivity made you feel as though you had to stand in the middle of the river, stopping every piece of debris, controlling every current. But as you heal, you learn to step onto the bank and watch the river flow. You do not need to stop it. You do not need to control it. You only need to trust that the river knows where it is going. And when you do step into it, you let it carry you, not as a victim, but as a participant in the greater dance of life. This is where your sensitivity becomes a gift, but not the kind of gift people romanticize. It is not about feeling everything all the time. It is about seeing deeply, about perceiving the symbolic threads that weave through life, about listening to the quiet truths that most people miss because they are too distracted. You have this ability, not because you were spared pain, but because you have walked through it and come out the other side with your eyes wide open. The journey, of course, does not end here. There will always be new layers of the psyche to explore, new shadows to integrate, new dreams to interpret. But once you have learned to see your sensitivity as a teacher rather than a tyrant, you will no longer fear it. You will no longer see it as something that controls you. You will see it as a companion on the path of self-discovery. And this path, my friend, is the path of the soul. It is the path that leads you step by step into the fullness of your own being. So, I leave you with this thought. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The problem is only the story you have told yourself about it, the story that says it makes you weak, or broken, or too much. That story is a lie. The truth is that your sensitivity is evidence of your strength, of your ability to survive, of your capacity to feel deeply in a world that often demands numbness. But it is time to move beyond survival. It is time to let your sensitivity become wisdom, presence, and power. You do not need to be on guard anymore. You are safe. You are whole, and you are ready to live, not as the child who once trembled in the dark, but as the adult who now carries the light